Travis, and welcome to tonight's edition of the Regional News. We start with some news in Trinidad and Tobago, where relatives of Gary Lane, who was found dead in the holding cell of the Aruca police station on Sunday afternoon, are calling for a full probe into what happened, as they claim he would never do harm to himself, as he had his 5-year-old daughter to live for. According to a police report, Lane, 30, of Masika, was placed in a cell in the Homicide Bureau of Investigation's Region 2 area of the station. He was waiting to be interviewed by investigators over conspiracy to murder and gang-related offenses. However, officers who were checking on prisoners later found Lane unresponsive in the cell. He was taken to the Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex in Mount Hope, but was declared dead. Investigators later concluded that Lane died by suicide. However, a close relative who wished not to be named said yesterday that they do not believe it was a suicide. Initially, the relative said they were told Lane hung himself with a pair of 3/4 jeans. However, they did not take a 3/4 jeans to him as a change of clothes. Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley is advocating for reparations for the region, as well as a Caribbean Marshall Plan to address the economic decline the region faces as it confronts the deadly combination of the negative impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and the inherent social and economic disparities that continue to stymie the region's development. According to a CARICOM Community CARICOM Secretariat release yesterday, these remarks were made by Mottley as part of her address at a recent virtual media engagement organized by the CARICOM Reparations Commission, over which she has oversight as the current chairperson of CARICOM's Prime Ministerial Subcommittee on Reparations. The Prime Minister's mention of a Caribbean Marshall Plan was a reference to the U.S.-funded economic recovery plan for the Western European nations that were devastated in the Second World War. The initiative was named after George Marshall, who was the U.S. Secretary of State at the time. She contended that for CARICOM, reparations are not just simply about the money, but also about justice. The former CARICOM chair asserted that the case for reparations at this point will allow the region to move to the next level with respect to education, healthcare, and access to capital, land, and housing. And finally, in Mexico. The country yesterday raised the number of people listed officially as disappeared in the violent-torn country to 73,201, with the most of them believed to be victims of brutal drug cartel warfare. The latest figures, revised from 61,000 in January, paint an ever grimmer picture of the scale of bloodshed and suffering in Mexico, where a record of 34,582 people were murdered last year. Mexico has been racked by violence for years as successive governments battle vicious drug cartels, often by taking out their leaders. That has resulted in a fragmentation of gangs and increasingly vicious fighting. The government of President Andres Manuel Lopez promised a new strategy after taking power in December 2018, but has struggled to tame the cartel violence even during the coronavirus pandemic. The number of disappeared persons was revised after an exhaustive search for cases that were recorded with state prosecutors and local authorities, but which never made it into national database, authorities said. Most victims who disappeared amid an epidemic of violence after the so-called war of drugs began in late 2006, data showed. About 1,523 of the cases related to a period between 1964 and 2005. And that's it for our regional news this evening, and I continue to urge our viewers to stay at home, continue practicing social distancing, and wear those masks. Back to you, Travis.